Fancy intro music, yeah! Woo!
Talking Cat is here, but not here.
I am now here.
Oh, hey, Talking Cat.
Wow, you sound dulcet and soft.
Yeah, man. It's rough moments, right? Rough life moments. How are you?
It's been
On a scale?
long week,
Yeah.
but we're getting there. We're getting there. How's your? I told this earlier. I had a chance to message you. How's your baby?
Let me finish this chicken dance real quick. All right, FYI, with DJ as a guest, we will turn off these sound alerts. Not that we don't appreciate them. We just want to make sure DJ doesn't get alerted. Baby is currently at hospital getting checked out. 103.5-degree fever, rash all over their body. 2 months old. You know, very fun, very scary stuff.
Very scary stuff.
So
you
we've
should
been
probably be there, huh?
well, technically no. Simply because all of us being there would be dragging the 5-year-old and the 2-year-old up there.
Yeah.
So
I get that.
not that I'm trying to say that I don't care or anything like that, but you know, I've been struggling a lot with my own mental health this week, and then I've got to watch
It's been
the
a
kids
challenging
here.
week, huh? It's been a challenging week, man.
It has, and not just in game, just in general. So I was shocked. Today is the first day kind of like logged into the news, and I was like, you were there in our pre-art meeting, and I was telling the arc runner like, hey, dude, I don't care. Make it a ridiculous payout where I've got to spend stupid amounts of ultra credits to somehow turn that into a Ducat shard, and somehow that stuck and listened, apparently.
Yeah. So, there's been a lot of conversation this week, particularly about sourcing and about the feedback. Echo has come out and said, hey, we're trying something different. And I think that was not, what we had in mind as players. So when we're able to kind of go back and say, yeah, this is not kind of what we're feeling. This is not really, not what players I think were enjoying. Then they went back to the drawing board and looked at a couple of different options. Your Ultra Recruit idea was certainly one. There were a couple of different ideas on the table. This one seemed to be simple because what I was advocating for was something that everybody could be involved in, right?
Yeah.
Whether it was some kind of grind, but listen, Rev, you know too, just based on our meetings, I've been really pushing trying to get back to like a material diversity, right? Like we used to have ultra auctions, we used to have domination auctions, we used to have and still do kind of have some directive auctions, things like that. But I wanted to get back to, relieving a little bit of pressure, right? If it's always materials all the time, then not only do we, have these other currencies that now start to feel useless, but players can actually punish themselves because of the habits that Scopely's taught us. So, how many people are holding 100,000, 150,000, 200,000 ultras? That's a lot of progression. That's a lot of officer sourcing that we're just sitting on because Scopely's trained us to be this way. So I've really been pushing a lot about trying to diversify the valued currency, get back to metas, get back to ultras, get back to ship XP and officer XP. And so it kind of seemed like a perfect marriage. Your proposal with an ultra conversion, and at the same time, I'm screaming at Scopely to deplete the banks because you and I have even talked about this. They step away from ultras because they don't make money, but they don't make money because no one's willing to take a chance on them, and because nobody takes a chance on them, then players build up 250,000 at a time. So when an event comes around, they're not going to spend money. They've got ultras out the yin yang. So it was really kind of two proposals that really did kind of go hand in hand. It was like me and Rev were just like walking down the beach, and it was sunset, and the waves were crashing against our bare feet, and it was just kind of a nice moment when we realized that we wanted the same thing.
rough numbering it, you and I a few months ago had sat down and actually did math, which you and I love math. And we compared how much actual ultras we get. Well, reading off this news post, if it's 16K times 2, 32K is actually more than most people can earn in a month. Now, you, if I remember right, earned a little bit more than that, but you're also a higher tier.
Yeah.
So for the average player, though, that is actually starting to do, and I'll be honest, as a player, I'm happy because if you remember when we had our conversation, I actually said 50K. Like, I said if I could drop 50K ultras to get something like 20, 30 shards, that hardcore clears out the bank but gets people a lot closer to unlocking, which in future runs would make it easier to run an ultra run. But either way, it's I think it's working out. I am surprised that they're not as aggressive, and I'm not trying to tell players to pray that they are as aggressive, but if you clear that system out, and it's like I'd have a couple of these conversations with devs where they kind of just see ultras as like a gimme currency. Like we just throw ultras in whatever to fill a spot, you know, so they have a very low value on it. But it's like they've built this echo chamber. It only has a low value because you keep giving it a low value. If you take a month or two to devalue it, it now is just as important as an ultra recruit because, I'm sorry, as a armada, because we've got 180 officers in the game now, DJ. So if we can actually turn this into a value sink, well, people are going to have to be very tactical of when they use them instead of just blowing them for transporter patterns.
That's true. And one thing that I think is really important to kind of keep in mind here is that these things are still valuable. Just because Scopely takes a look at a mathematical sheet or how they're sourcing it out, because they're giving more, then that means they're worth less. But they really are still, for a lot of players, they are really primarily your officer shard progression. And I know that those chests are very diluted, but that's why they have to give more, Rev. When you put 70 or 80 officers in one chest, then they have to ramp up the number of ultras that they're giving just so players aren't really stagnating. And really, truthfully, at this point, like I might even argue that there's still not enough out there because players still struggle when there's 80 officers in a chest. That being said, they are a valued currency. Like it
Sure.
you know, in the players' minds, especially veteran players. Like, we remember days when auctions were won or lost by ultras. We remember days where epic officers were either unlocked or not as a result of ultra recruit tokens. So I still feel like players can be very familiar with this metric, and newer players might look at this.
I want to bring up a point that you did when we were having our pre-art meeting. And I've actually had conversations with some of the newer devs that I feel like I've kind of forgotten this. There are a lot of metas that we used to run for officers, particularly before battle passes came out, which was January 2020, that we've just kind of forgotten about and not gone back to. And you made the point of, hey guys, we have variables that we can actually rely on if we actually take the time to go back to those and rebuild those as a mechanic. And I really feel like that would be a great move by the team, especially with some of the stuff moving forward, so that we're not constantly doing this spin event. And from a Scopely standpoint, I know short term, they're going to see less money, but long term, if you can make more currencies have more value, well, then you have more potential revenue streams without putting the same strain week after week after week.
Which is why I think we see the ratio that we see here, Rev. I know some players are not super happy about the conversion, but I mean, really truthfully, at the end of the day, I don't think it's wildly out of whack. I mean, it might be a little expensive, okay? And maybe not even a little. It's pretty expensive. When you think about what you're
not ultra recruit expensive. So
it's not elite.
It's not the elite faction expensive.
But think about this, Rev. Let's pretend for a second we got 32,000 tokens that are ultra recruit tokens that we can dump into this thing. That is 40 chests, each with 12 shards. It's 480 shards. Okay. Now, those 32,000 ultras that you're going to get will get you 8 pulls of the Legate Decree chest. Now, I wasn't super engaged with that loop last weekend, Rev, so I don't know how many officer shards are going to come out. But the data that I have gathered just from players say, listen, the odds were pretty good that you were going to get at least 1 or 2 potential Ducat shards with each one of those pulls. So that should, let's say, ballpark you in the neighborhood of about 15 Ducat shards. That might be a little aggressive. It could be 13. It could be 10 if you have really bad RNG, and it could be 25. And Rev, it could be a 100. So there is a little bit of a lottery chance. There is a little bit of a lottery chance. I mean, it's 5 players out of 1,000 are going to hit that lottery, but there is a chance. So players do have, and I fundamentally praise this all the time. Players got a choice. It's 480 traditional shards that you're going to trade off for 15 Ducat and maybe 30 or 40 other shards. It's a steep conversion, right? But it's also the officer of the day. This is the flavor of the week. So, obviously you have a choice to make. And here's the thing. If you are more advanced or more progressed with your officers in the Ultra Recruit chest, then maybe this makes sense for you. Maybe you've got 250,000 in your bank. And 32,000 is a drop in the bucket to pick up 15, 16 Ducat shards with the chance at 100. Some other players who might only be sitting Rev on 30 or 40,000, this may not be a wise move for you. So it's definitely going to depend on your account, where you are with your officer sourcing, and just how you feel about it in general. But I am glad that the option is here. Rev, I think it was a great idea to offer this kind of a recruiter conversion. It is expensive, but it does provide players a choice.
It's also expensive.
It's the start of the path.
It might be expensive, but it's also a currency we've been sitting on for so long. Like I've got 127,000 after telling people to go spend them, because nothing's been coming for a while. So even though it is expensive now, and I know this is like dangerous ground to tread when we talk about it, when we have our meetings with the dev teams, because if it's expensive now does not mean it will be expensive 6-8 months from now. It has to be expensive if Rev and DJ's goal is to stop having this be a sitting currency that's worthless. Because as a player, you have to realize that if you've got 100,000 ultras, that currency to the game is worthless. And you want it to have value, and when it has value, then they're incentivized to actually use it. Right now, they have no incentive to use it because it's a waste.
So that's why the proposals go hand in hand so well. My goal, which is going to sound very anti-player, and it's not, my goal is to drain some of these huge banks of
see, that's why in our dev meeting, I said 50K, knowing that if players heard me say that, they'd be pissed. Because my goal is empty it out quick. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then we can adjust afterwards. Like, don't make it 50K every time. Just let's go ahead and empty it out now. And then
to get them down a little bit because they can see every single player's balance. They can see segments. They can say, okay, the average player is holding 150,000 ultras. And I got to be honest with you, Scopely is looking for that number to Rev. What do you think? Be between 10 and 20. Honestly, 10 and 20,000 is what they would probably like players to be holding for them to feel like it's a monetizable currency. Now, some players are going to be the exception to that. Some players are going to hoard. Some players are just going to spend them as they go, and that's okay. But if my goal is ultimately some material diversification throughout metas and in auctions, like fundamentally, Rev, I want 4 SLBs a month. 4.
See, and I actually had a good chat with the dev. The best meta that I felt month-wise, and this included a meta that was outside the normal arc run, is going back to April. You know why I liked it? It was 2 spend SLBs, 1 ultra SLB, and then the break week when we had the Borg also had a mixture type SLB, which was earning officer shards, but not necessarily spending ultras. You had 4 SLBs that much, which sounds heavy, but realistically, it's not heavy when they're split into 2 different types, right?
You got it. And your chat even says, what about the Tendi meta? I liked that too, but not necessarily for the same reason. I like the Tendi meta because it had multiple valued currency sinks, which was also, a piece or a phase of what I'm trying to do here with Scopely Ops is to try to get these currencies valued again, bring their value up so that we can try to return to a meta style. We haven't had it in a while. And I think that's 2 reasons. One, Scopely has stepped away from these currencies, so now the only thing you've got is materials for a meta, and B, if players have a bunch of banks, then really at the end of the day, guys, Scopely's not going to make any money, and that's kind of counterintuitive to what their existence is, right? So if we kind of get this down, like 4 SLBs and a meta, which sounds crazy, Rev, but 2 for materials, 1 for ultras, 1 for domination, true domination, ship XP, officer XP, and on top of that, I think you throw in a meta with mild or manageable material sinks. But again, you can use those metas to kind of
you know where I was going to go with that? That might bring some ire, but I do think it would be good, especially with everything we have going on now. Personal opinion, I would actually really like every 3 to 4 months a true blue Armada leaderboard to incentivize these new Solar Armadas, these new Cardassian Armadas, and push that new mechanic, but keeping it rare. But again, this adds parity. So it's always forcing you to spend a currency and prevent it from getting stagnant. And it makes you have to be purposeful of when you use them, which is what this type of game should be about.
I like the strategy piece of that. And I know this sounds weird because I've gotten a lot of questions today on this, Rev. So it's good that, you're on the same page. It's good that we're kind of together on this. Players don't understand why I'm advocating to drain their banks. Guys, really, it's ultimately for the good of all of us, because look what happened last month. We had 5 material spend solo leaderboards. If material spend is the only way Scopely feels like they can have a valued currency, then we get spenders fatigue, man, and we get boring calendars, and we get no diversity in our spend and no diversity in our event flavor and things like that. By getting some of these banks under control, by getting them down, depleted, spent, then it is more likely. And listen, at the end of the day, Scopely runs this place. If we want them to adopt an idea, there has to be the potential for earning.
Yeah.
So the question becomes then, if you had only 10,000 ultras and there's a meta that comes out, or a Ducat conversion, or some new officer solo leaderboard for ultras, are you more likely or less likely to buy a pack that has ultra recruit tokens? And that's kind of where we're coming back. That doesn't mean you have to. That just means that players have used up what they've got, and maybe if they find super big value, like, let me just ask, how many people might have spent on a pack for ultra recruit tokens if there was a full unlock of Interceptor Strike Team in an ultra auction? Now,
that's a good question.
That's not likely to happen this month, Rev, because there are hundreds of thousands of ultra recruit tokens sitting in players' banks. But when it's down to 20 or 30 or 40, that's not enough to win an auction. So are you willing to spend potentially, maybe, on a pack if it meant you could have won this Interceptor officer? That is what Scopely wants. And when they look at the fact that the average player, Rev, is holding 170 or 180,000 ultras, that's scary to them, because there's not much opportunity for people to buy packs, because 180,000 ultras is a lot.
If you think about it, even on my server, if I go to buy the Ultra Fed pack, which not many people do anymore, but when you and I were first starting in the game, this was the pack the whales bought. They bought the Ultra Recruit packs because of what they got from Federation credits and recruit tokens. But if you get 15K per there, that's about a half month worth of grinding for $100. If you are having this level that you're running, you're providing a parity, and this where we can run multiple leaderboards a month where you can actually focus. Because here's how it would play out if you're free to play. Look, going into, say, November, hey, I've saved up all my materials. I can focus on the spin events, but I'm not quite ready yet to focus on the ultra events. I'll wait for those until December. And now you get to augment your play. And if you think you're just close enough, now you have multiple options on where to spin to make up for that. One thing I've noticed with the spin leaderboards is the treasury is huge for that, because that treasury is 150% pack with all those ultras that allows you to jump for a cheaper price per point in that type of leaderboard. But even then, you're going to get fatigue where if there's 4 of those, well, that only gives you a jump on one of them, you know? But if we are doing like the month we had the Mariner month, which I think was April, where you had 2 spins and an ultra, where now you can diversify a little bit and plan a little bit differently and go after it in that way. And if we can get them to see that down the road, that's going to help the game as well as player fatigue dropping down a lot.
Well, I mean, anytime somebody beats you up over the same exact thing over and over and over and over and over again, yeah, it definitely gets tiresome. It gets tough to handle. And so that's ultimately why, I've been on this recent kind of kick, this recent kind of campaign for valued currency diversity. And this weekend begins, I guess, maybe step one of either Scopely saying, well, let's show him why this doesn't work, or okay, Rev, okay, DJ's like, fine, we'll try it your way for a minute, but wag your finger if this doesn't make money. But I think Rev and I both have kind of communicated, listen, this is not the month where you put the most valuable officer in the game behind ultras, because it's probably not going to make you a lot of money. So if you're banking on millions of dollars in pack sales, like, don't, right? So hammer. you see what I'm saying? Like, now of course that's still material, but again, we're looking at this Ducat conversion. I think this is step one. I don't know. I mean, I could be really, really wrong, but Rev, either in November, which it might be too late for November, just given where we are in the ARC plan, but I would say by the end of this year.
Well, you also had a good idea.
I find it likely that we see an ultra recruit officer auction, and I'm not saying that for you guys to bank. I'm saying that for you guys to acknowledge that we're trying to steer this ship around, and this is a good thing for you guys to engage in. So listen, maybe you don't love the Ducat conversion. Well, then spend your ultras in the ultra chest. Find that solo leaderboard on the 11-day rotation. Maybe go in on that a little bit. Don't drain it all, because you want to have a little bit of an advantage next month. But here's the point. If you guys go into the next month where the average player is at 200,000 ultras, we're not going to see that auction.
Yeah. Agreed. Look, one idea that you had that I loved to get rid of some of this, you know how we've had the flash pass, and I love that idea. Running a Kobayashi Maru style of event between arcs.
Yep.
That was literally you filling in officers that you don't have. There's your Picard sourcing, et cetera, et cetera. And if you chose to go to the tippy top of that, which let's just say in theory was 200,000 ultras, you just cleared the bank. But you got to throw in important officers, but not new officers, because obviously that's how they view a premium item. But there's still no real Picard sourcing. There's still no real anti-Trinity sourcing that's reliable. Doing something like that is an instant clear out, and those mission styles have been successful the couple of times we've run them. And shout out to Snake Eyes, by the way, who named it. He won the naming rights one when we went through that. So
yeah, he did. The Kobayashi Maru was his name, and it stuck. It has stuck with live ops. It has stuck with the community, and it was really, really good. But, so I will tell you, the Kobayashi Maru event that I think they were scared of, at least at this point, Rev, but the one that I had pitched, and, even the community, like, you guys look at this Ducat thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you think that the conversion is bad on that. Rev, my proposal was a Kobayashi Maru style SMS for Picard at 800 ultras per shard. Now, you still got what was in your ultra chest, right? So, like, you spent 800 ultras, so you got whatever. So, basically, you'd still get your 12 in there, right? But you got one Picard shard. Now, people are going to say, DJ, that is effing crazy.
However,
all right?
I just quick
but
math.
do the math.
Do the math on it. I've got 127,000. So, by your math, not counting all the other officers I would get, I would have ended up with 160 Picard shards, 20 short of his normal unlock.
Yeah, and that's 160,000. Now, Scopely, you want to drain the bank? There you go. That one might even make money in month one. Okay, that might even make money in month one.
I will agree, a little expensive, but a great
Well,
idea.
you haven't lost the 12 though, and that was why I kind of liked it
Yeah.
because you still got your original 12.
But that's the
You know,
thing. I
so
would have pulled 159 times. So now do 159 times 12. So
yeah.
I would have gotten almost 2,000 total officer shards. Value wise, it's not just the Picard. I would have loaded up on transporter patterns,
You got
experience.
it.
The
Yes.
math
And
supports that.
players would have hooked up with their progression. They wouldn't, I mean, because really, you just said it, 2,000 shards. Like community, you don't realize the stash you're sitting on. All right.
Yeah.
Now I know we're waiting for something to, we're waiting to be paid, but there does come a point where we're like, okay, like how long are we going to keep this $1 million in cash in my pocket, Rev, before I'm just going to go have a little bit of freaking fun? You know what I'm saying? Like
Agreed.
that is kind of where we are. How much harm are you doing to your accounts holding on to 2,000 officer shards? Now, Mud says, who wants Picard anymore? I mean, listen, I do. I know a
I
lot of
have
players
him.
still do.
He's super
Um,
useful.
yeah, I use him a lot. All
If
right.
you
Now,
could
I don't
get
know.
Cath better sourcing, Picard would be even better. Like Picard,
Yeah.
Beverly, Cath is a great run for a second hostile ground crew.
For sure, for sure. And some players are going to say that he's not really worth the tier. And for the OA, I would almost agree with you, but man, I would really also like some extra stats. So
Yeah.
promoting him up is not necessarily for the officer ability, but it's for his statistical abilities and the stat bonuses that he can provide. So again, I know that if that had launched, players would have absolutely gone out of their minds, I think, at the quote unquote cost of that. Whoa, 800 ultras for one Picard shard. But you're not just getting that one shard. You're also finally cashing in on those 2,000 shards that you've been sitting on. It's almost like eat your broccoli for your own good.
I also want to point out that if in those 2,000 shards I had actually been able to get data, that also would have been a huge win. Like I say, it's a TNG themed with a bunch of mixed in data. While not the greatest as a lower level, Data's a really good officer later down the road.
Now, Debble says, 150,000 plus bank is crazy for most players. It's really not.
That's the thing. It's not. Me and DJ do the math. Look, guys.
Yeah.
And I don't have the spreadsheet in front of me, but I did it for me and DJ compared. I was getting me in a top 3 alliance 25,000 ultras a month.
And I was if
you were,
remember,
I think, about 35K when we talked.
I think it was I was probably that's probably about right, 35, maybe 40. Because now I did do a little bit more investment into those daily mini events. Like if there's an ultra for research, if there's an ultra for build, you could bet like 9 out of 10 days I'm doing those. That's a wonderful, wonderful source of ultras.
Yes.
Is those daily minis that have ship XP and officer XP and ultras. Like that's a really great source for ultra recruits. And I think my number, it might have been 35, 40,000. But how long's it been since we had an ultra material or an ultra token spend? So, 30,000 a month.
I can tell you,
months,
it was the
Mariner
150.
month.
That was the last month.
It's not hard to have 150. As a matter of fact, I think last month I finally breached 200, and I did decide to spend about 40 or 50,000. But I might have spent a little bit more than that. But let me just tell you.
And real quick on a note, by the way, from Scopus says, Rev's been saying spend them. I have. The reason I've been saying spend them is because the pushback that me and DJ have been getting when it comes to actually using this as an event source. But what we're telling you now is we finally seem to be getting a little bit of leeway. So yes, for the past 6 months, I have been telling you to spend them because if you're sitting on them, they're doing nothing. They're not transporter patterns. They're not giving you the stats you need for away teams and below deck abilities. Like, if you had actually used them for the past 6 months, then your Beverly, you can easily stack 30, 40,000 stats beneath deck for her. But if we can actually start getting them to move in the direction that me and DJ are pushing, now it becomes smart to start saving.
Oh, and by the way, I see what you're saying, Devil. So you're saying, well, you've been telling us to spend them, so no one has the 150,000 bank. Well, sadly, not everybody listens to us, and
believe it or
honestly,
not, we don't have as much movement as you think we do.
But and this is true, all right. And I'm a part of this problem. I have currently right now right at 100,000, and I spent a bunch last month. I've got 100,000 right now. The average player, and this is, you got to remember, this is also including the whales, all right? But the average player is holding like 180,000. Now, when you look at a player like Bubba Joe, when you look at a player like Trader, Trader's holding like, I think she said on the air the other day, she's only holding like 80-some thousand. Bubba Joe's probably 500,000.
I would say he's very high. I talked to him the other day because we were talking about a couple of different of the new officers and everything and the sourcing, and he just has no need to jump in and spend the way.
Yeah, it doesn't bring him any good.
Yeah, it doesn't do him any good.
He's done with his entire transporter store. He's done with all of the officers in the Ultra, so there really is no need. These types of converters and these types of solo leaderboards and these types of Kobayashi Maru syncs are going to help everybody bring it down. Now, Bubba doesn't happen to be a fan of Picard, but I can tell you if it was Trader would probably go buy freaking officer packs.
Bubba's not caring about Picard because he's full in on the strange new world fighting Belosian miners every day. So
yeah.
Picard doesn't really help him. But if you are Scopely's the devil, Picard does help you if you are, in that same situation.
So, long story short, and by the way, I'm not necessarily saying, Targ, that people who don't watch the content have the advantage. I mean, there's still some strategy here, right? There's still some strategy. Like, if you're, let's say you're holding 150. Let's say you're holding 100, okay? What Scopely, I think, is aiming to see here, and Rev, correct me if I'm wrong, but what Scopely's aiming to see here is hopefully 60, 70, 75% of the community engages with this pack.
Yeah.
Honestly, I feel like that's probably enough for them to say in November or December, okay, all right, well, how many did we just pull off the market? Why don't we go ahead and maybe try something else? And by the way, it doesn't necessarily have to be the feature officer. I've suggested solo leaderboards for independent credits. I've suggested solo leaderboards for officer badges. Stuff that is still important to us, but not quite as valuable to Scopely to, again,
to prove
further
a point, by the way,
the banks.
DJ, I want to issue a challenge. We got 230 watching now. Because Scopely says, love you both, but this is crazy talk. I want to show you, Scopely, that we're not crazy. If you are listening right now, DM me how many ultras you have with your level. I want to show Scopely that, believe it or not, there are people sitting on hordes of these things. If you're listening to the sound of me and DJ's voice, send me a screenshot of what number ultras and just say what level you are. I promise you, me and DJ are not secretly the only ones hoarding.
Yeah. Divine, is that 650 ultras or 650,000? Because I might.
Yeah, I'm really curious. The 650. So Voltron's Ops 41 with 100K, 42 with 33K, Ops 42 with 189K, 44 with 66K. Lots of 40Ks, lots of high 30Ks, 56K.
There we go. There's Corey with
200,000, 127,000 right above there, 149,000, 55,000, 51,000, 73,000, 202,000, 206,000. So the point I'm making is, while no, I don't expect everybody here to have, a billion, but here's your proof. Like, these are average level players, 37s, 42s, sitting on 110, 120, 70,000.
Yeah, so if you guys look at your numbers here, just with who is responding here, the average is probably a solid 100 or 110 or 90 maybe. Now, you take in some people who do spend a lot, i.e. your VIP community that might have 500,000, and what does that do to the average, right? What does it do to the average? It really, really moves it up.
We're about to go full mean median mode here, DJ.
Yeah, that's right. The standard deviation of 106 ultra recruit tokens. But no, seriously, like, you guys can see it here. Do you remember, for those of you that are holding 40, 50, 60K, like, that used to be a gold mine.
Yeah.
Like,
level 35, 300,000, DJ. Level 35.
That's very impressive.
That is.
That's very impressive. And I'm here to tell you, Rev, do you not remember, like, even a year ago now? As a matter of fact, a year ago this month was the introduction The very first ever officer meta for 4 of 11. When 4 of
Yes.
11 launched, guys, you earned, this is insane, but there was an ultra recruit SMS that was responsible for like 14 or 17 of those shards, and it required 12,000 ultras.
Which
Okay.
was
Like,
wild, by the way. That was
yeah, I mean, you guys look at the value of what you're holding and how they have diminished in value. I want to bring that back. Like this is inflation gone wild, right? Or deflation, recession gone wild. I really want to try to get those values back here a little bit. And to do that, we got to get people spending, right? We got to get people spending them so that their supply drops a little bit and then their value can go up. And then we can actually start using them again in constructive ways. How nice would it be? Like, guys, you're looking at this 32,000 ultra thing and you're saying it's a bad value. And it used to be that like 12,000 ultras would finish a meta.
yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, so just trying to
It's
get
more of like we're
players
just trying to get you to
moving.
see past, the old adage, can't see the forest for the trees. You're focused on the singular problem right now of this cost. But the long-term goal is if players aren't level 35 sitting on 300K, then Scopely is incentivized to find a way to let you use that to actually earn new officers and not just old officers, like the 4 that we just talked about. Right now, they only lock them behind what they regard as premium currencies. And the goal me and DJ are trying to get to is make this a premium currency again.
So, like, I like Shinjo's comment, and Nexus says the same thing. People have been conditioned by Scopely to not spend them until rewarded to do so, and this is Scopely's fault. I told him it's a monster.
Agree.
It's a monster of
It
their
was
own
an echo
making.
chamber they made.
Yeah, it's a monster of their own making because here's what's happened, right? Listen, ARC runners are graded on performance not only by implementation and surveys in the community, but also by freaking dollars earned. So if they're scared of a currency, they're not going to run it, and that is what has happened here month after month after month. They're like, oh man, the last time we ran ultras, that really didn't do well. And listen, I'm trying to, like, this is my quarterly evaluation. I'm trying to make a little bit of money.
Between me and DJ, we are not unaware of what y'all are saying. We are very aware of how that process works. We're simply trying to change the direction of the ship for the better of the players. Like, we see what you're saying, and we agree with you. You are right. But that doesn't mean just because it's right doesn't mean it can't change.
And that's ultimately what we're chasing. It's kind of a new, I don't even want to say like a new thing, but last month really kind of reinvigorated that fire for me. Rev, in meetings month after month after month, I talk about metas. I talk about, free-to-play sourcing or at least some type of SMS grind for shards. And when I say grind, I don't mean just engagement. I do mean material sinks. Every single month I ask about these metas because every month that we ignore them, the less likely they are to ever come back. And I'm really not wanting that. So then we come into September.
You and I have gotten in trouble for bringing it up so much.
Yeah. So then you enter September where there were 5 material solo leaderboards. And that was just a terrible feeling for all of us.
Well,
like,
that's why we ended up with this month. Like, everybody complaining about the buy Ducat method. Well, that's because players were pissed off and complained about the 5 leaderboards. So
that was literally it.
That's the
reason.
reason.
Look at the data. We're complaining about solo leaderboards. So they're like, okay. We'll take it out. Well, listen, there is a middle ground. We didn't mean take it out completely, but we mean don't beat us over the head every 3 days with a new material spend. Like, let's diversify it. Let's cadence it a little bit. Let's get a little bit of a routine going, and let's stop ignoring them. Let's get these banks down so that you can actually start diversifying the spend. So, because really, truthfully, guys, I'm not opposed to 5 solo leaderboards because, listen, at the end of the day, it's better sourcing for everybody, but
it just can't be all the same. Like,
it can't be all
2
the
spend, 2 ultra, 1 armada a month. Gives people a chance to save up or spend to win which one they want to win. If you want to run 5. If you want to run 3, Do 2 and
Yeah.
1.
That's exactly right. Because listen, let's not pretend. I've seen this, Rev. I know you've seen it too. Like players are frustrated this month because they're like, "Hey, this is the first month I've played in 12 months where I haven't gotten all the officers." You want to know how that's possible? That's possible because players will look at the number of leaderboards and say, "Okay, 3 top 25s and 1 top 10. I can do this." Why do you think everybody was so pissed off about Cisco being swapped out at the last minute? Because
Yep.
people were planning on a couple of top 25s and a top 10, getting their sourcing. They had a plan, and then Scopely messed that up. And then, of course, this month we don't have any. Imagine how much simpler, truthfully, and I know this is going to sound crazy because there's still leaderboards, there's still auctions, but how much easier would it be to get 4 top 25s in a month if there were 5 total auctions or even or 4,
Well, DJ,
whatever?
I'll
But
also take it a step further, and this goes to the communication level. If we, as content creators, but more importantly, the game, could say, "Hey, look, end of month, we have a event store," and if we actually had clear communication, like, "Hey," and I love what they've been doing, by the way. Shout out to this month's Arc Runner and last month's. For some reason, the news post has already come down, but showed you how much you could earn for that epic officer. If we made it very vocal that, hey, you might not get it now, but get as much as you can, because guess what? An event store happens in December. And if we communicated that and let players know you will get this card, here is the sourcing pass for this month. Here's a future sourcing path. We will work on a permanent path, which actually there's already a permanent Cisco path in the game if you're level 35 plus. That level of communication takes away a lot of that.
it's 40 plus. Uh,
I'm sorry. You're right. 40 plus.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
because he's in those edict chests, which you don't
Yeah,
get
I'm
until
sorry.
Ops 40. But yeah, there is that plan that's in there, and I know that that's a little bit frustrating for some players too. But you're right. There is a sourcing plan there, just kind of like Strange New Worlds is currently behind the Mantis, which is again another frustrating piece for some players. But nonetheless, they are starting to introduce some of this stuff in some of these plans. So I feel like this is kind of testing the waters a little bit with this conversion. I'll tell you, Scopely was not unsuccessful with the Ducat sale packs.
They're not.
Like I know a lot of people.
Look, I'll tell you
complained
the
about
straight
them.
answer why.
They were not unsuccessful.
Free to play, and all of our friends that me and DJ work with, y'all are trying to plan to get it to spend as little as possible. But me and DJ have told you, at least I know I have. I don't know if DJ is willing to share this. Auctions can easily go for an individual whale between 5 and 10 grand per auction. These players were able to go and get Ducat for $300 at the bare minimum with the RNG and level him up for a third of the cost of winning him in an LB. So when it came to the average spinners, the upper dolphins and the lower whales, they bought it up. And by the way, can't negate that it had a hell of a lot of dilithium in it, which they also loved. So
yeah. And I got to be honest with you. I don't know if it was less money, DC. I honestly don't. I mean, again, this comes back to something that we constantly talk about, like, opportunity cost and things like that. Like, can I make more money off of an auction and get like 2 or 3 people going at each other's throats? Or can I get, more money off charging less to a larger population? Now, when you consider the demographics of who they're looking at, which is primarily G5 players, probably 52 plus, when you look primarily at that, these players spend money, right? They traditionally spend a fair amount of money. So, but even then, if one of them looks at a leaderboard and they've got Bubba Joe in their bracket on their server, or they've got Neotech in their bracket on their server, like some of these players just don't try, right?
let's take a step further. How much has that fatigue become? Well, leaderboards in, let's just say 2020. Like I remember talking to a whale when the jellyfish leaderboard first came out, and he personally, and that's when the brackets were small. DJ, remember that bracket was only a couple levels. He personally spent $6 grand just to get the ISS jelly. But we've been doing that for 2.5 years now. Can we expect that same level of dedicated spending, or has it started to fall off because that's the method?
Right? How many of you went out and spent $1,000 on your pay flower when it first came out?
Poor DJ.
Poor DJ.
I love you, buddy. So the point we're trying to make to y'all
not
is
only that, but yeah, and who else thought that it was good to spend $1,000 on the Payflower, but also skip Harrison in the event store because
oh well, he can't be that important, right?
whatever.
What does even shield bypass
just
mean?
rare.
I mean, but the point we're making, y'all,
God.
is, and this is the tricky thing for content creators, and we always try to be honest about this. As content creators, we have to find ways to get y'all as much of the stuff in the game in the free-to-play, cheapest way as possible. But at the same time, we have to make sure that the game is making money to sustain itself. So there has to be a balance between both of these things.
To be clear, it's not necessarily our job to make sure the game is making money, but
you know what I mean by that, DJ.
Yeah,
know what
and
I mean.
well, I know, but I hear this all the time. Like, why are you looking out for Scopely? That's not it, folks. Okay,
we're looking
so
out for the longevity of the game.
Well, here's the thing. Like, we're more likely to affect change if we can tell Scopely why it could be good for them too.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like any business, no business is just going to go out and just hand away free money. Like, there has to be a possible kickback. Like, there has to be a possible monetization or a possible revenue path or a possible payoff or windfall at some point. So when we talk about the things that we're trying to do to the game, we're not trying to make Scopely more money by revaluing ultras. What we're trying to do is to get you guys some event currency diversity. But the side effect is, like, the reason that it can work for Scopely is that players might be willing to buy that pack or 2 packs to top off their meta or finish their progression or try to snipe that leaderboard. Because really, at the end of the day, selling an officer for $600 is wildly out of reach for 95% of us. But a $50 pack or a $100 pack, if it got you the full unlock of an officer, like, that's how these auctions used to be.
Because I love Humble Protector's comment. Sounds like they're paying you. Well, me and DJ will be very open. We always share everything we get. Neither of us have received money from Scopely. We do get in-game items to help make content, but to this point, 4 years, unless DJ's taking something he hasn't told me about it, none of us have gotten paid. But let me explain some of the. Did you just giggle?
I gotten paid in cuddles and head scratches.
Yeah, exactly. So let me give you an example of how this strategy has worked and why it's worked. One example is, many of you complain about $100 price points. A hard price point in multiple meetings I've had with devs and eco is, how can we build lower price points that give players options that aren't this typical $100? Now, they are going to miss out on things like uncommons. One of those that came out that was deemed semi-effective was the Chin Talon pack. And it's something that they now rerun about once a quarter. It's $20 to get the most important grind set in the game until level 52. Another example was, hey, it's all about how you attack with their logic. They very clearly want every player in this game to be level 35 plus. DJ can agree to this. All the content's coming around built around it. So look at the bonus refinery idea. The fight for the bonus refinery, the argument was, the more materials we give players to this low level stuff, the quicker we can get them into the area that you want them to be spending in. Now, I'm not trying to say I want those players spending, but when you approach a game company and a dev team, it has to be mutually exclusive. And I tell players all the time, you can come at me with a billion ideas that are great for players, but here's the second part. Why is it great for the game? Why is the game going to dedicate man hours to development, meetings to do all?
It's a business, guys. There has to be a payoff. So, for example, when we're looking at this, and I understand players' perspective on it, they think that, we're trying to push an agenda and whatever. Yeah, I am trying to push an agenda. It's just not the one that you think I'm pushing for.
Yeah.
Scopely doesn't have to listen to us. But if we can approach them objectively and say, okay, hey, listen, here's something that can be good for the players, right? Here's something that can be good for morale. Here's something that can be good for sentiment. And not only that, but hey, you remember this pack? If you put this up, all right, then players kind of like that pack. You put these two things together, then you might actually have a chance to sell something. I mean, how many times do we see an Armada event go off and you guys are asking us to get the Galactic Armada pack launched, right?
Yeah.
Like, that happens. You guys say, like tickets. I actually got one today. hey, I'm low on tickets and I don't see the ticket pack, and you get the tickets launched, the ticket pack launched. Like, you guys want to spend money in certain areas. So what we try to do is explain to Scopely like how that can happen while still delivering the community a piece of content that might be good for everybody. Not only that, with your bonus refinery Rev, because that very much was a huge campaign piece for Rev. Like, he was very on that for months and months. Guys, with these extra materials, a lot of players have a real, like, a year ago, nobody would have gotten multiple top 25s and a top 10 or even 2 top 10s in auctions. Like, that wasn't a thing. Now, I know you say you give more materials to everybody than the economy's just inflated, but not everybody spends them like you. You know, sometimes people will just do events or do buildings because they can and they're excited or whatever. But not everybody does it just like you. So when we come back to the player who said, you know, for the last 9 months, I've gotten every officer unlocked. Well, that's great. But that is
That's also
because
a very unique experience to that player.
sure
Very
it is.
unique.
Sure it is. But it also kind of speaks to the fact that materials are out there, making it more possible for you guys to do some of these upgrades and things like that. Moreover, like, it does come down to FOMO still, yet again, Rev. Man, if I am within, you know, for me, if I'm within 500 ship parts or within 1,000 crystal of getting a tier of my pylum, God, like, I am fighting that buy button. Like,
Yeah.
I am fighting myself because it's like, I've worked all this time, right? I've worked all this time and I'm so close. And gosh, you know, when we look at you know, a tier of a G4 ship and somebody says it's $1,200, yeah, that's easy to pass up. Ducat, $600, that's easy to pass up. But what about when you are $100 away? Like, are you going to be like, you know what, piss on it, I've waited this long, I'll spend $100 and I'll get it now? That is what we want Scopely to feel like is a possibility with things like this. Because listen, human nature is, it is a possibility.
Yeah.
And so if we get you guys closer, if we can find a way to get you guys closer, then statistically some of you will buy to cross the finish line. And ultimately, I know it sounds like we're doing the same thing Scopely is, but we're actually, what about everybody who didn't spend that $100? They're so much closer. So much closer. And that is the end game. That's
One
the
other
goal.
thing I have for DJ, and I know this is why I brought you on. I appreciate you spending so much time here because my mental fatigue's been crazy. What are all the added events that we have coming here and being discussed? Because I'd asked you, Jelly
Yep.
Pursuit is getting added. We don't have a date, but that is getting
Correct.
added.
So we do know that Jellyfish Pursuit is coming. So here's the thing: people have been asking about that because for a moment we thought it was going to be the only material spend. Well, now you've also got Hemmer. All right. So, but that does still appear to be it. Now, at least for this arc, Rev, I would imagine that there will probably still be something going on with incursions. That is, you know, a pretty normal thing. So we could see a third material spend in the month of October when incursions come. But right here and now, you've got the Jellyfish auction, which we do not have a date on yet, but obviously it's going to run within the arc, so we're running out of time. They've got, what, like less than 10 days left.
Yeah.
So so that's going to come sometime in the next 10 days. You've got this Hemmer auction that is happening starting tomorrow, right?
Yeah, this weekend. Matches with the Ducat turn in, right?
Let me see. I've got a date
I
here.
think it's on the
Let me double
calendar.
check. Here we go. 10:15. Yep, this is tomorrow. Tomorrow, on Saturday, you will begin, from what I understand, it to be a 48-hour solo leaderboard for materials and directives. Just
Now,
like always, a very
I
normal
believe there's
SLB.
not an SMS attached to this SLB though, right?
Not this time. There is
Yeah.
not a paired SMS for the Hemmer auction. Okay, not this time. Now, they told me there was not one scheduled. Okay, that is not to say that somebody could not be maybe burning the midnight oil. I did ask them to do one. I don't know if it will come because I also asked them for something else for tomorrow, and I don't know that there's enough time to do everything. So we'll see if a paired SMS comes.
I do want to
What
address a
I
comment from Devil real quick because
Sure.
he says October 22, the death of free to play. I want to point out something real quick, guys. Look, Arc Runners manage events, and Arc Runners have different styles and how they run this event. This Arc Runner is obviously going a little bit of a different direction, especially when we are being very open with y'all about the monetary aspect of this game.
What's October 22nd?
October 2022 is what they're saying is death of free to play.
Oh.
But what I want to counter with real quick, y'all, if please remove the events or paywall or whatever you want to say. This is a very feature, free to play, extremely friendly month with the math strongly backing up. This is the best free to play feature in some time, y'all. I really want to emphasize this harshly. This is a very, very free to play month. The people who are actually having trouble with this feature are the whales because they've used these strategies to skip a lot of ships to go to one big ship. For free to play, level 35 plus, this has been an amazing addition to your game. The favors are permanent researches. The material claims, if you choose to use them, are an immediate increase to your uncommon grind. There's officer sourcing in here for 40 plus. And this is not like the Stella grind that DJ loves and I hated, where it's a constant. This is a relatively easy single day grind that hits multiple areas. Free to play for this feature is the best free to play feature arguably this year. There's a couple of other things there. I will agree with y'all. Events are frustrating, but y'all have got to really fall in love with this Bajoran thing because this Bajoran can change your game for the better as a free to play.
Think about what this is, guys. Like, these are loot bonuses, hull bonuses, shield bonuses. And Rev, I don't remember right off. Maybe you can help me. How many materials, like how much crystal gas and ore am I having to invest into this new research tree?
None.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's right. Maybe
because
they
they're
told me
favors.
that. But it was like billions of dilithium, right? Like they were hammering us on resources. That's what it was.
Yeah, well, the favors themselves cost nothing but credits.
Okay, Rev didn't follow where I was going with
Where
that.
you okay?
It's
where were you?
nothing, guys. Nothing. No materials.
Yeah.
No
I'm so
resources.
sorry. I did miss it. I'm sorry. I did miss it completely.
It's okay. That's all right. Yeah, no, I was just trying to lead you down that path right there. But yeah, guys, think of this. This is the first research tree in the game that literally costs nothing.
All it costs you is time. That's it.
Yeah.
Like, you do not need dilithium. You do not need to have a shit ton of uncommon. Like, you don't have to go to STFC.space and go, oh man, level 5 secret, it needs 3,000 5-star rare. Nope, not at all. It's literally you grind it.
For Wham, it is ship repairs. For most G5 players, it's still that. But again, I come back to what Game Design said earlier, I guess last week. You have a choice, okay? It's either going to be more expensive with less time or more time with very little expense. For some players who are hitting up like super hard, right? Trying just to do it in 5, 10, 12 minutes. Yeah, it's going to be a little bit pricey. Those hostels are smacking really good. If you hit down a level or two, you're going to save yourself a boatload in repairs. But yeah, count on it taking an extra 20 minutes. It's definitely a very clear, defined choice, Tritanium or time. And that is definitely a very, very clear choice. Wrapping up your calendar for this weekend. So you got the Hammer SLB that is starting tomorrow on Saturday. That is materials and directive spend, just like normal, very traditional Armada, or a very traditional solo leaderboard, very normal auction. Also, starting on Sunday, you are going to get 2 different Armada solo milestones. So here's where I put up a post in my Discord a little bit earlier. I might, like for today and maybe even tomorrow, Saturday, I might recommend that you hold your solo milestone or your solo Armada directives just for a day or so, okay? Now, you don't have to. to. You for sure don't have to, but now we know there's an event coming, right? So it might make sense to skip it for one day. Go ahead and do your hostiles, get the badges, get the directive, all right? But hang on to it for a minute. You're going to have 2 events, and Rev, I know that there's always frustration when they use the word heroic, but in this particular case, they actually use it perfectly appropriately. You've got a heroic Armada SMS, and then you have a normal Armada SMS. What I'm here to tell you, what I can alleviate your concerns with, is that the Armada SMS will be able to be completed by anybody engaged in the Bajoran loop. Like if you're pulling your directives, you'll be able to do it. It is a single
If you're doing your
event.
once a day, you're good.
So think about this, Rev. It is a singular event that lasts 96 hours, all right, 4 days, which means normally we think we would probably be able to get 4 uncommon starts in that time, right? I have been told that this SMS is scaled in such a way that anybody following the intended path in the Bajoran loop is going to finish the normal Armada SMS. But there was an extra little twist here that I like, Rev, because there's the heroic Armada SMS, which our definition of heroic is what? Spenders only, right? Like that's not going to be for us. It's going to be all rares and epics probably, and we're not going to have a chance to do it. But it's mechanically different. There are 4 24-hour heroic solo milestones. So 4 different events, each for a period of 24 hours. Now, community, here is the fun part. If you were deciding that you wanted to wait for a day or 2, maybe on your normal Armada SMS, Rev, like if I wanted to save up those 4 and not burn it on Sunday or Monday, but I maybe actually wanted to wait until Wednesday to do it, if you stack up your Armada SMS and you burst it and you blitz it all in one day, here's a super secret special strategy tip for you. You will actually be able to complete one of the heroic Armada SMSs as a free-to-play. Now, there are 4 of them, Rev. Okay, so
but still,
clearly,
when we say heroic, the immediate thought on heroic, we've taught y'all this, means free to play won't complete it. So the fact that you can do one is important.
It's kind of nice, right? Like heroic means that they expect players to spend on it, but they still actually built in a way for us to get a little bit of a taste.
Now,
All right?
RBV in their question says, is that assuming that an Ops 43 player can kill a 43 solo? So I talked to GD last week, and they were very kind enough to talk about the intention of the design of solos. Solos are meant to be beaten by your level. If you are 35, you are expected to beat a 35. If you are a 43, you're expected to have the ships, Cerritos, etc., exocomps to beat a 43, 46, 46. So I'm assuming the scaling will follow that. But yes, if you are a 43, you are expected to be able to solo a 43 Armada. That was how they scaled the design of these solos.
That's correct. So when you look at this heroic event, yeah, for most of us who have been doing them, like I haven't been hoarding them. I wanted the rewards. I wanted to engage. I wanted the favors. So I haven't been saving them. I will likely go with you guys on this community free-to-play path here on this one. And honestly, my thinking, I mean, if I'm just looking at the math, Rev, I'm going to say I'm going to hold my SMSs or hold my directives for the next couple of days. And on day 4 of this event, which let's see, if it starts Sunday, then Monday, Tuesday. So Wednesday, Rev, on Wednesday, I'm going to run 4 uncommons all on Wednesday during that last 24-hour solo milestone of the heroic Armada SMS. And that, with 4 uncommons, Rev, should maybe potentially get me a rare. And for the record, I don't know that that's necessary. I believe that here's what was told to me. If I run all of my directives on one day, I can complete a heroic. Yeah. Now, we don't know, Rev. That might be we complete all of our uncommons, we do a redeem, we get a rare and also run a rare, and that can do the heroic. Okay? Don't know. Yes. Don't know. All we have been told is free to play if they burst play, will be able to complete one of the heroic solo milestones if you do them all within the same 24-hour event. And I think that's a cool thing.
I will point out something real quick because I know DJ, you've been flip flopping a lot on, and I don't blame you for it because I understand the logic about the camping strategy. And I will say this though, one thing that has come in my favor is solo armadas have made camping so important.
I mean, hanging out, building the strength of your account is for sure something that comes. And listen, as a free to play, I do support that, and I know that I've said this to you before, Rev. Like, there's a clear difference to me, if you spend money, and I'm not even talking about like a $20 battle pass. I'm talking like if you spend $100-$200 a month in this game, then I don't think that there is a camping platform for you. Okay.
But here's the big catch on the new mechanic, and I've been talking to a lot of our 60s and 50s. The game, when I talk about the game expected you to be like level 43 to beat a 43, the reason they expect that is they expect you to have one uncommon and probably 2 decently sized epics or an ISS jelly. The problem though is a lot of players, especially spenders, what they've done is, skip the Tribune, skip the Hegta and go straight to the Corvus. So they've got this one super beefy ship and not anything else. And so now you have to start working on the strategy. And I'm not saying everybody should camp, but what I am saying is the dynamics of this game are changing. And that's a good thing, by the way. It shows the game is growing in strategy to where now you really need to consider that pylum and the coroner. You and I, DJ, talked a long time. And it was a little controversial when it came out. When we did our Camping at 39 video, we both said, yeah, get an Enterprise and an Augur to tier 8. Like at the time, people were like, what do you want us to spend that? But now,
let me tell you,
it's paying off.
Even now, though, it is paying off. And I'll tell you, folks, like even so now, obviously, hopefully some of you guys have seen my Twitch where we've done some of these Armada testings. Rev, you had trouble believing the results when I told you about them the first time. Like, I'm punching really ridiculously high. Now, I am a big believer in research. My research is very, very good. And I'm an Ops 47. But for those of you who believe it or don't, I've got a Twitch link that I can share with you if you want. But I actually killed a 51 rare on camera with a tier 6 Pylum as my brute, as my lead ship. But Rev, the other 2 ships were a tier 8 Enterprise and a tier 8 Augur.
Yeah.
All right. Now, I used all the tools. I used all the Exos. I used Cerritos support. Yeah. I used an Augur cloak. Okay. I did all of that stuff.
Yeah.
I used every tool available to me, but I had 1 brute and 2 G3 epics to kill a 51 rare. These things are designed to be relatively completable around your ops level, but there is definitely an ability for you to punch up, and it doesn't need to be on 3 leading edge ships. I'm using 2 G3 epics, and by the way, just throwing this out there, I know I've seen a lot of people sending their jellies out. I mean, if you've got a decent tier Augur, I'm here to tell you, I'm pretty sure against these targets, it's doing better than the jelly. Just throwing that out there.
I did a lot of logs. My Spox Club, my jelly. So my Valdor would push out 120 million damage versus a 46. My Augur would push out 80 million. I was running a combination of Giorgio and Critical. So basically, I turned my Enterprise into a support ship. It's running Kirk, Lorca, Giorgio. It's just a support ship.
So really similar pattern on that. Here's what I did. I ran 5/6 con on my Pylum. On my Enterprise, it took 3 years, Rev, but I finally jumped on the Paul Zal hype train. All right. I ran Kirk, Zal, and Lorca on my Enterprise. So the Enterprise was, the mitigation was there. The survivability was there. And while he was alive, all right, I'm feeding Hull Breach up to my Pylum. All right, well, Pylum's got 6. It's got the extra piercing. Okay, fine, DJ. What's the Augur doing? I ran Cisco, Miles, and Nero. Nero feeding health stats. Nero feeding the health stats over to Cisco, so getting the extra mitigation and survivability there. Miles hopefully just procking as much as freaking possible. Hopefully procking when we get an obliterator round. Nero sponsoring the burn. But not only that, we've got the burn, we've got the multiple obliterator shots, but we've got an auger that has hull for days. It
Yeah.
survived. It was a tank. And on screen, now with support, obviously with Cerrito support, and I used a cloak for the auger, 51 rare, and none of the ships died.
Yeah, for me,
Like the auger didn't die.
I've still got them loaded out, which I will say this has really jacked up my docking, by the way. But I'm running on the Enterprise 5 Kirk Lorca. So there's my whole breach. There's my mitigation. One thing I've told everybody, every ship needs mitigation. All of them. All of them need to be running mitigation because the amount of hull health and DPR is run.
Yeah.
Then
Yeah,
I'm running Riker Bev Khan on the Pylum. And then I'm running Cisco, Miles, and Giorgio on the Auger. And then I Cerritos buff them all. I'll cloak if I have to. I can beat a 46 rare as a level 43, 44. And that's significant.
That's a good punch up.
Yeah.
That's a good punch up. And, you know, if you're able to punch up a level or two like that on these armadas, you know, Rev, they told us in the beginning 3 to 4 days and you would be able to earn a rare. Guys, I know
I've already run 2 rares.
Some people felt that is slower, which was probably mostly some of the G5 players, but I think some of that's been addressed now with the warp lock change. But now that you guys are able to punch up a little bit, I think already here, Rev, day 10, day 12, we're already seeing that number is probably going to end up being less, probably certainly closer to 1 every 3 days, or maybe even 2. Rev, I could run 2 uncommons and get enough loot.
It comes down to the cruise you're running
for chest.
to push
for
up
sure.
Because if you can get
Mitigation
enough
is
of that loot and you can pull that every day and every now and then pull the double loot, then you're going to be able to run multiple rares a week, which has officially become the best armada sourcing in the game, even eclipsing Outlaw.
Absolutely. And more interesting than Outlaw. Madness says, interesting. DJ runs Nero on the Auger. Rev is running GG. Which way to go? So, you know what? There's
I
not
can give
a
you
wrong
my
answer
reason.
there. There's not a wrong answer there.
There's one
the
reason
only
I
reason
do
I
it.
like Nero. What's yours?
There's only one reason I do it, and that's in case you decide to run something like Ash Tyler somewhere. Nero can't give you round 1. That's it. That's the only difference now. That's it. So
now, you know, I get that.
But it does depend on the tier. Like, if you got a tier 1 Giorgio, run Nero. But I don't have a tier 1 Giorgio.
I like Nero. Well, and Giorgio also, her primary statistic is defense.
Mm-hmm.
So even though it's very, 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 very small, Nero will statistically give you better mitigation for Cisco. Even though it's a very, very small impact. But you're right, it might be worth having that extra slot there. Now, you know, if you're going to
then
do
the flip
solo
side of that
armadas,
is you would run Giorgio with Beverly. So there's ways to mix that up because Beverly's primary mid stat is defense.
See, now I would flip that around, just me and what I did, because I ran Picard, Zal, Lorca on the Enterprise, and see, I don't see a Lorca in your setup.
Well, you couldn't have run Picard, Zal. You mean Kirk, Zal.
Did I say Picard? I'm sorry,
Yeah.
Kirk, Zal is what I meant. Kirk, Zal, to get that morale, get the shield regen, and by the way, even against the level 51,
you know the reason I'm not using Zal though?
Because
you're forgetting the loot bonus of 5.
Well, no, I'm putting the loot bonus on my Pylum.
Well, see, the Pylum already has a loot bonus, though.
I know, but it stacks.
I know they see. I don't have a Pylum yet, so. But I love that secret fact, by the way, for those listening. They're basically built in 5 of 11s, and it's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah, and they stack. So, like, my Pylum is at 50% loot bonus. My 5 of 11 is at 80% loot bonus. Then I've got the 50% loot favor. So just off of my Pylum, I'm getting a 180% loot bonus.
Now, I do want to see if you agree with this, because several people came out with me with a strategy that I disagreed with. They wanted to stack Cisco and Khan on the same boat. I would rather have 2 critical builds with my whole breach support than try to heavy stack 1 to get criticals as quickly as possible. What do you think? So they were suggesting run Cisco and Khan on the Valdor to try to get the critical as big and as early as you can in game. Personally, I run the critical on the Augur and the Valdor, willing to sacrifice those couple of early rounds because most of these fights are going anywhere from 18 to 22 rounds.
These are very long battles, and there is validity in getting to that crit chance much earlier. Like, that's a very solid strategy. But the reason that I still kind of break that down a little bit more traditionally is primarily because of 6 of 11.
Yeah.
6 of 11 is so stupid. And again, it's situational, right? But I've got a pylon, which is already throwing massive shots anyway, Rev. It's an interceptor, so it's got big cannons. I do that, and then I've got hull breach coming from the Enterprise, so now I've got, the extra hull breach bonus on top of the crits, on top of the big cannons, on top of, 85% piercing from 6 of 11. It just makes me feel like, and based off the data that I've seen, for me, this is very niche, but for me, I don't need to double up there. You know what I'm saying? Like, I need 5 and 6 together, and I want them with Khan, because even with the maybe slightly fewer number of crits that I'm throwing, because it's on a cannon, and because it's got 6 of 11, and because I've got hull breach, I'm actually doing more damage than if I had tried to get Cisco up there.
By the way, Wild Tark has a great question. DJ, real quick, do you want me to take this audio and send it to you and do another pod? Because I'm going to basically put this on. I think we had some great Armada discussion here and everything with Cruz. But Wild Tark, great question. Can we discuss that DJ is wrong and that Miles is the spy?
Hashtag Team DJs. Hashtag have a lollipop, Rev. Hashtag Kira is the spy.
I love how DJ's entire logic is built around Scopely building something well. So automatically, Miles is the spy.
No, this is funny. I was talking to Echo earlier today, actually, and I told him, that I was actually really, really enjoying this back and forth with you, Rev, regarding Kira and Miles. And he said, why are you so convinced? He said, because didn't last month you tell me that you thought it was Miles too? And we were like, well, that sucks. All the content creation team thinks it's Miles. So like, it's not going to be quite that big. I really was on board. Now there's a much funnier explanation for this on Twitch. There's a much funnier explanation. Like, if you listen to the moment of realization, because Rev, it didn't happen. Like, I even started this month thinking it was Miles, and then it clicked. And when you hear me actually realize it,
I can hear that you believe it, and I respect that.
Shit, I'm 100% right, Rev. Like, there is no doubt. There is no doubt. Do you want me to explain it to your community?
What I want to do is preface
this. Team Rev over to Team DJs right now.
As Team Rev is listening, please remember that DJ is a used car salesman, and go.
Guys, listen to me, okay? First of all, Kira sucks, right? Right? All right. As an officer,
I love it.
As an officer, Kira ain't doing shit. Okay, she's not doing anything. Like, let's think about this. It takes her 25 rounds to get good. You know what that tells me? Tells me she's lazy. All right, tells me that she doesn't want to do anything. She ain't trying to do anything. Like, it's going to take her 25 rounds to finally decide, like, she might want to start doing a little bit of work, right? All right, so she's trying to, like, put off the good abilities. She's trying to make sure that we're not that we're wasting that combat slot. She's trying to make sure that we die in our armadas. All right, it takes somebody like Picard or Benjamin Sisko to amplify her to the point where she might get off her ass a couple of rounds early and actually start to do something. All right, hey, how about you fly her out to outlaw space where all the criminals hang out, huh? What's she doing out there? She's stealing your directives, community. What happens when you put Kira on a Stella and you try to run an armada, huh? Tell me, what happens? The timer counts down to 0? Shit don't happen. Kira stole your directives. The Armada broke the outlaw exchange system.
I just want to point out there's a mathematical reason for that, because like Khan, she can create negative mitigation, and this goes back to Scopely being bad at their game. That has nothing to do with who's the spy.
And that therein is my final point. That is number 3, Rev. Scopely breaks shit all the time, right? Everything that comes out is broken. So how about Scopely decides to sit back and be like, yo, how funny would it be if
so we're going to just skip over the fact that Miles was broken when he came out too.
Yeah, but he got fixed. Okay, he got fixed. Listen,
but there's nothing to fix with Kira. She's just shittily designed.
She's shittily designed because
on purpose.
That's right. Scopely said, hey, guys, how funny would it be if we break this shit, all right? And they just think it's a bug, but for a change, we did it on purpose. We did it on purpose.
Well, what's the purpose of the spy? To be as good as possible at their impersonation?
No, she's sabotaging us. She's destroying our lives. She's making us angry and destroying our sanity. She's breaking up armadas. She's stealing from the players. I mean, come on, man. If that is not somebody working against us, I don't know what is. She's stealing from you right under your noses, and you're like, oh, Kira's the best ever. It's definitely Miles. Meanwhile, super secret spy Kira's sitting over here going, ha ha, sucker.
I just want to point out that Kira at a decent tier with good stat stacking is actually amazing at Deep Space Armadas. I just want to point that out real quick. She was ruin your day with Eclipse.
Hold on.
Ruin
There's
your
another
day.
point. Rev, listen, I'm going to win you yet, all right? There's point number 4. There's point number 4. If she was an imposter, that means she's not really a Kira. Rev, if you put one Kira on a Deep Space Armada, how good is she, huh? How many do you have to have? You got to have freaking 6 of them, all right? Does that mean, like, you got to have 6 of them before they actually start to do anything, which means they're all clones, they're imposters, they're changelings, whatever the hell they are. There is 6 of them. Did I lose you?
No, I'm here. I'm letting you go.
Okay, there's 6 of them, which means they can't actually be the real Kira. There's 6 of them out there, and they're like, okay, fine, maybe we should actually try to do something, all right? It takes 6 of them to actually do anything, I'm telling you. Hashtag Kira is the mother effing spy, okay? Now, who's with me now?
First comment is DJ is insane. I love our community.
I like Targs. Rev won this argument at DJ's a used car salesman. Okay, fair.
Look, I will stress this to everybody listening. If you're listening, and no matter what side you pick, you will be rewarded for participating. Pick a side. Don't be scared. If you go full Kira, you're not going to get told you're shafted at the very end. Okay? So whether you believe Rev, or whether you believe DJ, or if no one shall's going Cisco, just make sure you're going a direction. You will get a reward.
I'm telling you. I mean, she's stealing from us. If that's not sabotage, I don't know what the hell is, okay?
This sounds like marriage, to be honest with you. Snexus says, can you explain the Kira bug? DJ, I know you love math. The simple answer is can create negative mitigation like Khan can, but DJ, if you want to go full math because you love nerding out.
I'll try to do this in like 60 seconds or less. The bottom line is Kira is reducing the Armada's mitigation statistics as compared to 6 of 11, which is increasing your own piercing. So if you're inherently increasing your own piercing, nothing ever gets negative. That's why 6 of 11 can go forever, and it's fine. But when you're reducing mitigation, it can eventually get negative.
Yes.
And what happens is when the defense mitigation goes negative enough, mitigated damage will actually zero out, and that is when it happens. Like, and you look in a battle log and you look, the top line is mitigated damage. Well, that's usually 20, 30, 40, 50%. 71.9 is the game's mathematical maximum. But when you're piercing the target and the mitigation can actually come down, and even Rev, if it's 1, like literally 1 damage gets mitigated, then that is still okay. When the numbers get so far negative, that mitigated damage actually does hit 0, it just breaks the mechanics of the game. The Armada fails to go off, aka Kira.
We had a similar
breaks
problem
shit.
with this with base rating. If you remember, if you led with like Marcus as a crew member, bases it wouldn't raid the base. So there is just how this game, to use DJ's words, truncates the math can cause problems and force things to simply not count. Now, if you are that, you need to be aware this will cause you to lose your directives. Contact customer support, they'll refund you them back. But be
and they're
mindful.
only doing that to throw. They're only doing that to throw you off the scent because they know Kira's the spy.
Yes, customer support got a memo. That Kira's the
make
spy.
sure and throw them off. Make sure that everybody believes this is a bug, ladies and gentlemen. Introducing the first bug that was actually intended in this game. It is Kira. And by the way, the reason that it's happening on Exchange as compared to other Armadas is actually because of the Stella research. There's already a ton of and
Stella research will put you at the floor.
So when you take
anyway, so
when you've got all of that research and then you stack Kira on top of it, it's actually taking the game into a negative status. You will not get Kira to break these Armadas in dark space. Although, let me rephrase. I have heard of one example, but I think that they really did it very intentionally. It would not be very easy to do this in a dark space Armada. By the way, probably very possible on traditional lower space faction Armadas too. So be careful with Kira on those. She's really best.
She's probably best at this point, DJ, if we really tell people to don't use her except in our Karmada, just to keep people's directives
or deep
safe.
Space. Deep space is okay too.
But even then, go back to what you're saying, because I mentioned that if we're doing deep space, for her to really be effective, you need everybody doing it anyway. So
yeah, you need Picard, Beverly, Kira, and then you need Kira's all the way down. But even then, the deep space Armadas do have a pretty healthy statistical chunk, so it's not likely that you're going to actually get far enough into the negative.
Don't do solos though, because they don't. It's very surprising me these days. They don't have a lot of statistical bump. They're just whole health and DPR.
Here's the next. Yeah, but here's the next thing. And take the conspiracy out of it for a moment. Really, the way Kira is written, I think, and again, I'm teasing about, the intended bug, but it might not have been, unintended, Rev. She affects the Armada. Scopely knew this when they launched her. It's not like 6 of 11, where it only affects your ship. It actually affects the Armada. So if you have multiple Kiras there, they knew that she was going to have an amplified effect. Because if 5 people are there and 5 people are affecting the Armada, then the Armada is going to have 5 times the effect. So she is going to be good, but this requires coordination with your team because 1 or 2 Kiras ain't going to get it done. You need all of them.
Yeah.
And
an even better outro than the intro. For the Empire and glory to your house.